Hey, good morning, everybody. We are going to try the next lesson here about writing ratios given three sides of a triangle. So I'm just going to pull up a notebook here. And this information is going to be key for us kind of moving forward with the rest of our unit. We need to make sure we know how to label our triangles. And we talked about naming them little a, little b, and little c in the last lesson. And today we want to make sure we want to be able to label the hypotenuse, the opposite of A. In this case, we're talking about A because A is our circled angle, and adjacent to A, again, because A is our circled angle. We can use other letters to be referencing as well. Like we can name our triangle J, K, and L. So when I go to name my triangles, I always start with my hypotenuse first. And I know the letter C is at 90 degrees here. So my hypotenuse is the side that's 13. When I pick my second side, I always think about what side is opposite of what I'm starting at. I'm talking about angle A. So I always want to make sure that I'm talking about 12, in this case being across from A. So 12 is opposite A. And there's only three sides to a triangle. So by default, then I'm always left with my adjacent side being the last side. And the adjacent side, for whatever reason, seems to be the one that causes us the most grief. When we are talking about trigonometry, triangle geometry is what trigonometry stands for. We're talking about three special ratios. We talk about a sine ratio, a cosine ratio, and a tangent ratio. And those are all three buttons on your calculator. You can see sin, S-I-N, cos, C-O-S, and tan, T-A-N, buttons on your calculator. They're sine, cosine, and tangent. And we want to know that we can write ratios for any angle in the triangle. So we say the sine ratio is defined as the side that's opposite and a ratio to the side that is the hypotenuse. So my opposite side is 12. So I'm going to write 12 as my side that is the opposite side. And I just want to clean that up a little bit. So 12 then, because I'm asking what side is opposite angle A, I put 12 in here. And then what side is the hypotenuse? And we said the hypotenuse has a length of 13. So if you're talking about a ratio, which again is just really a fraction, sine ratio for angle A is going to be 12/13. So that's writing the sine ratio for it. Later on in future lessons, we're going to talk about how to find the angle or talk about finding sides in a triangle. But for this lesson right now, we just want to have an understanding that ratios are fractions. They're proportions of sides. The next ratio we're going to talk about then is our cosine ratio. And cosine is always defined as the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Adjacent is 5. So I want to put 5 in for my adjacent side. And my hypotenuse is 13. So I want to put 13 in for my hypotenuse. So my cosine ratio for this angle is 5/13. And similarly, my tangent ratio is defined as an opposite side over the adjacent side. So my opposite side is 12. So I'm going to put 12 in for my opposite side. And I'm going to put in 5 for my adjacent side. So my tangent ratio for this angle is 12/5. So angle A has three special ratios. It has a sine ratio, opposite over hypotenuse, 12/13. It has a cosine ratio, adjacent over hypotenuse, 5/13, and has a tangent ratio of 12/5. So that's naming relative to A. Let's go to example number 2. And in example number 2, we said we want to talk about angle B this time. And I've circled angle B to kind of make sure it's my known reference. So again, how do I name my triangle first of all? Number 1, I want to know here's my 90-degree angle. So I go across from 90 degrees, and my hypotenuse this time is 9. What side is opposite of B? So because I circled B, I'm going to go to the opposite side of B. So my opposite side of B is 3.5. And again, because there's only three sides to a triangle, if I've labeled the hypotenuse and the opposite already, by default, the last side then is the side adjacent. So 8.3 is the side that's adjacent to B. So now I can fill in the rest of my information. What are the ratios for angle B? Sine of B needs to be the opposite of B over the hypotenuse. opposite of B was 3.5. So I'm going to put 3.5 in for my opposite of B. My hypotenuse in my question is 9. So I'm going to put in 9, and I guess I put 9.0 because it's written as 9.0. So that's my sine ratio. And we're not worried about simplifying. We just want to write ratios right now. Cosine ratio. Cosine ratio is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. The adjacent side is 8.3. So I'm going to put in 8.3 as my adjacent side. And for my hypotenuse, I'm going to type in 9.0. And that's my cosine ratio, 8.3 over 9.0. And the last ratio I want us to name the tangent ratio. The opposite side, 3.5, and the adjacent side, 8.3. So that's our lesson on writing ratios. Every angle in a right triangle, well, not the right angle triangle, but the other two angles, A and B, both have special ratios: a sine ratio, a cosine ratio, and a tangent ratio. And today's lesson is just about making sure we can label the sides of the triangle properly and write the three ratios. And then in the future, we're going to talk about finding angles and finding sides. All right, you've got some work to do. If you have any questions, of course, give me a shout.